Hi, today we're going to explain the grid for the key of B major and G minor. Before we get started, you want to grab your music sheet that says grid scale pattern for key of B flat and G minor. So go ahead and pause the tutorial, grab your music sheet, and then come on back. Okay, we got the music sheet. Just to let you know, we will not be playing the ukulele in this lesson. We're going to talk about on how the grid for B flat and G minor works in conjunction with the family of chords for that key of B flat major, and that's located right down here of your diagram. And hopefully you have taken a lot of notes in the open spaces from the first tutorial of this series for the B flat major scales. Okay. Now, I know by looking at it, it looks a little overwhelming, but if you think about it, what we're going to be doing in the next tutorial, where we show you how to practice the B flat major grid, is we're going to be breaking this whole fretboard up into sections. But right now you can probably see some sections that we went through. For instance, let's see here. We had the B flat major scale that went from here all the way up to B flat down here. So some notes are left out, but if you if you took notes before from the previous lessons, you know what I'm talking about. B flat to B flat on your 13th fret. We also had the B flat extended scale located over here. We also talked about the G minor scale, which is located over here. So now, overall, you have covered quite a bit of fretboard by just doing those 3 lessons of the basic B flat scale, basic position, the extended B flat major scale, and then the G minor scale. Now, keep in mind when you're playing the grid for the B major scale patterns, keep in mind that there's 2 flats, B flat and E flat, and as you can see, there's a number of them when you look at the whole grid. By the way, the name the grid is a made-up name that I made up. It just keeps an idea of what all the notes are when you're playing this key. Okay, so like I said, there's quite a bit of B flats, E flats, B flats, E flats, B flat, E flat. So be aware of that when you're playing in the key of B flat. Now, B flat is not a really popular key to play in, but it's semi-popular among ukulele players. B flat, more so because it utilizes the key of G minor. I know that quite a bit of folks like to play in G minor, and this is the key that it's in, and we're going to talk about the family chords later on and how it works. So technically, if you play in the key of B major or G minor in conjunction with the family of chords, okay, the family of chords which was discussed down here, okay, the family of chords of B flat major and G minor works together with the grid, the fretboard scale pattern. By understanding both of them and how they work together, you can play any note you want and it will fit in that key and that family of chord sequence. Okay? So basically what I'm trying to say, if you're playing in the key of B flat major or G minor, if you're playing a melodic line, you can use any one of these notes or any combination of these notes, and it will sound fine. It will sound good. Now keep in mind that some notes will sound more interesting than others. Some notes will sound stronger than others because of the chordal pattern and triads, which is discussed in another course on how to build chords and construct chords. But that's something to keep in mind. So basically when you're playing the grid, you want to play it where the notes that you're picking sounds good. So start that way, that it sounds good. And theoretically, we'll discuss more theory on how to play it in the upcoming tutorial. Okay, and then when you're playing, basically you're thinking about starting from one area or one note and going to another note. Okay, then that's how you want to think. You want to start from one note and you're going to another note. And the way you're doing that is you can utilize various patterns or routes to get to the other note. So let's just say I am going from a B flat to a B flat or a B flat. I'm gonna decide for myself which route I want to take to get to there. Or let's say we're playing from an F to a E flat, from F to an E flat. We can decide on what route we want to take to get there. Okay. So that's the idea of how you want to think about it. And keep in mind, they're like, basically the concept of thinking about it is the same concept of thinking about as if it was a map and you're getting from one location to the other location. And the area that we're talking about, let's say it's really familiar to you, like your neighborhood. So in your neighborhood, you probably know various streets, and you probably know several ways to get from one point to the other point. So in other words, when you learn the grid, what you want to do is you want to know it so well that you can get from one point to the other point several ways. Okay, that's like a really basic concept of trying to understand that. But hopefully you can start to elaborate that as you get more and more comfortable. Now, the techniques that I've showed so far, for instance, like sliding and hammer-ons, you can utilize that as you go from one note to the next note. Keep in mind, you want to start off with notes and playing that sound good to you or sound interesting to you. That's how you want to start off. If something that sounds good, you want to keep it and you want to elaborate more on it. If it doesn't sound quite the way you want it to sound, then you can, discard it and try something else. Okay, so once again, we talked about the family of chords down here at the bottom of your paper and working in conjunction with the entire grid. Now, at this point, you should have a fair understanding of this and how it works with this. So for instance, let's just say I'm working with the 1, 4, 5, 7 chord. The 1, 4, 5, 7 chord. That'd be B flat, E flat, F7. 1 chord B flat, 4 chord E flat, 5, 7 chord F7. I'm working with just those 3 chords, strumming whatever pattern I want to, but I'm only going to play those 3 chords. I can use all these notes and it will work. So let's see when we want to shift to a minor key, like a G minor. So it'd be one minor chord, G minor, 1 minor chord, G minor, 4 minor chord, C minor, and 5/7 chord, D7, 5/7 chord, D7. Remember we talked about the minor keys, how it kind of shifts, and the chords shift. Okay, so if you're playing in that G minor chordal tonality, that's G minor, C minor, and D7, you can play any one of these notes and it will sound right. Okay, so it's important that you understand the family of chords and how it works with this. So basically all these chords work with this. Okay, now keep in mind I did leave out the top G string and I didn't go too far down here because not everybody has a 12 frets or 13 frets or 14 frets. I know tenors have that many frets, so if you have a tenor ukulele, you can totally utilize this entire grid. Okay, now getting back to my G string over here, the high G string, it doesn't work in accordance with the scale pattern that goes from low to high and high to low. So that's why I left the notes out, but you can still utilize it in whatever style or technique that fits with you. Now, it is an option. It is an option, your option, to go out and buy a low G string for your ukulele. And if you do that, then you can utilize all 4 strings in a scale pattern that goes from low to high, okay? Because now you have a low G string. But the big reason why I don't talk about it a whole lot is because a majority of the students that are taking this course have a high G string, and a lot of them may not even switch to a low G string, which is perfectly fine. So therefore, I don't want to include it in the explanation of the lesson because it's going to confuse people about how to use it. But once again, I know a lot of people that have a low G string, they put it on and there's a lot more versatility. Okay, so that's another route that you can think about if you want to go that way. Okay, so that being said, I only have part of the notes of the grid, so you can go farther if you have more frets. Okay, and you can add that G string, and you want to definitely understand the concept of the family of chords in conjunction working with the entire grid. Okay, now if that sounds vague to you or a little confusing or not clear, you need to go back to the original tutorial at the beginning of this series for the B flat scale. It should be the very first tutorial for the B flat scale section. Okay, in that tutorial it's going to explain in more detail on how the theory of the family of chords works with the scale patterns for B flat major. And then as you go along the series of B flat, I believe there's about 9 tutorials. So as you go along that series and sequence of the tutorials for B flat major, it'll start coming together and piecing together, and you'll totally understand it. So in other words, if you don't understand this at this point right now, don't proceed anymore, because the next upcoming tutorials is just going to get more advanced and more elaborate and technical on how to use and play the grid. So unless you have a good foundation, or at least an adequate understanding of what we're talking about right now, okay, it's something to think about going on or going back and reviewing the tutorial to prepare you before going on to the next one. So in the next tutorial, we're going to talk about how to practice the grid for B flat major and G minor. So when you're ready, we'll see you then.